In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can connect Claude to your Instagram DMs to be able to reply to leads within 30 seconds, follow up completely automatically, and book calls on autopilot for your high ticket offer. So whether you run your own coaching, consulting, or done for you service and are trying to book more calls for your high ticket offer, or maybe you operate some sort of client and you're actually trying to book in more calls for their offer through the Instagram DMs, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly which software to actually use to be able to automate everything and how to actually use the software so that way you can track everything in one singular spot. And by the way, if you want access to any of the resources that I actually go over inside of this video, feel free to check the first link in the description. But other than that, let's get straight into the video. Now, before I actually get into the nitty-gritty of the actual setup itself, it's really important to note that with Instagram, they have really strict limitations on what you can actually automate inside of the DMs. So if you end up actually using any sort of outside softwares that aren't actually approved by Meta's terms of service, you're going to actually end up getting shadow banned, and that's the last thing that you want with your Instagram account. So the way that we get around this is by leveraging the only software that's actually approved by Meta to be able to automate anything that has to do with the DMs, and that's ManyChat. And the reason that ManyChat is so good for our use case is because we can respond to the lead instantaneously the exact same way that a ManyChat automation would actually occur, but then we can actually have our AI conversation come in right after that lead has been responded to by the first automation that actually goes out via ManyChat. So let me actually go inside ManyChat so I can show you how the flows would actually be built out. So now that we're inside ManyChat, the first thing that we're going to want to do is head over to the automation tab on the left-hand side. So inside this tab is exactly where the automations are going to sit, where we're going to respond to the two lead types that are going to be coming through our funnel, and also having our AI actually respond to the lead and carry the conversation all the way until the booking. The first type of lead is any sort of inbound lead. So this is someone that either comments or DMs us a specific keyword to specifically get more information on the high ticket product. So typically any sort of inbound lead is much more higher intent. The setting process is a little bit shorter because again, they're already pretty sold on the service. That's why they're actually, either DMing you or commenting for that, high ticket product. And so we want to build out the flow for those higher intent leads, but also there are leads that might just, opt in for a free resource or a lead magnet. Those leads are typically a little bit lower intent compared to the inbound leads because again, they're not commenting and DMing us just to get more information about the high ticket product. They're usually just opting in to actually, either receive a free lead magnet or some sort of resource. So if you're ever scrolling on Instagram and you come across a reel where towards the end of the reel, they say comment XYZ for a free resource and I'll deliver it in the DMs, this is exactly where our AI is going to be able to come in the conversation after that resource has been delivered and actually begin that sales conversation. And one, see if they're actually a good fit for a high ticket offer. Then two, actually book them in on a sales call. So I'll go ahead and start with the inbound lead because again, that's going to be the most high intent lead that could possibly DM us. And so the way that we have it actually built out inside ManyChat is if for whatever reason a user sends us a message and it matches the keyword that we have, in this case it's demo, it could be any keyword that you want. So for example, if you're like a fitness coach and you run a coaching offer and your keyword is coach and that basically signifies, a high intent lead, we can set it up to be the exact same way. So that way, whatever keyword that you want to use, it will actually trigger the AI to come in. And so right after this lead actually sends us the first initial message, it'll actually get routed straight to our software. So I'll touch on our software in a little bit, but essentially it's an external request that goes straight to our AI DM setting infrastructure. So it'll basically recognize this lead as AI keyword receives and then begin that sales conversation, especially because this lead is super high intent, and have that speed to lead within the first 30 seconds and then have that sales conversation all the way until the call booking completely on autopilot. And this exact same setup applies to any sort of leads that actually opt in for a free deliverable, a lead magnet, or any other tool. And so with that flow, this is kind of what it looks like. Essentially inside, again, it's going to be the exact same situation as far as the trigger goes, except in this case, it's actually going to be a comment, but we can actually set it up so that way it can be a DM, a comment, or any other trigger that you actually want to use. And so in this case, if someone comments for that free resource, we'll first say, hey, what's up, first name? Were you looking for XYZ resource? You don't even have to have this, but it's just good so that way they have more intent behind the message. And then after that point, we actually send that resource inside of the DMs again, and we provide that link to whatever we want to give. So if you want to give a YouTube video, a lead magnet, maybe even send them, some sort of software tool that we use, we can send that inside the DMs. But then the best part is the actual, message that comes in right after that saying, by the way, I'll be online in a bit to see what you think of the resource. Let me know if you like it. And the reason we say this exact line is because a lot of people are already familiar with ManyChat and they already know that the things that are going to be delivered inside the DMs are actually being delivered automatically. However, what they don't know is the actual AI coming in the conversation because it'll look exactly like as if you were actually texting them in the DMs. And the reason that this line is actually so good is because one, it actually lowers their guard a little bit. So they'll know that it's not just ManyChat actually coming in the conversation. And then two, if the AI or you, for example, in this case, comes in the conversation right after the deliverable has been received, it will actually seem a lot more realistic and we'll actually be expecting it after a few minutes. And again, the exact same way that we had our AI actually come into the conversation for any sort of high intent inbound leads, we're going to have that exact same AI software, which again, I'm about to touch on in a minute, come into the conversation and actually see, one, if they like that resource and what they thought of it, and then two, begin that sales conversation all the way until they figure out if this person's actually a good fit for the high ticket offer, so that way they can send the calendar link and actually get them on the call. And the best part is with this AI software, it'll actually come into the conversation knowing exactly what happened. So it'll recognize that it was a lead magnet received and then ask that first question saying, hey, what did you end up thinking of the resource, or what did you end up thinking of the lead magnet, and then begin that sales conversation. So you don't have to worry about it actually sounding like a bot or not sounding or knowing what's going on in the conversation. It'll have full context and even know that person's name, so that way it sounds as realistic as possible. And so now I'll go ahead and show you exactly what these leads and what the conversations look like inside the software, so that way you can track every single lead in one singular spot and know exactly what's going on inside of your DMs. So now that we're inside the software, we're actually going to be able to have full clarity on what's going on inside the DMs, so there's no confusion as to where leads are actually dying inside of the sales process. And by the way, if you want full access to this software and the entire ManyChat setup completely done for you, click the first link in the description. But anyways, like I mentioned before, we could actually see exactly what's going on inside the DMs. So we can actually see the total leads, the total replies, whether a lead's actually in an AI conversation, whether that call's actually been proposed or that calendar has been sent, and when the call's been booked. And not to mention, we can actually see every single metric, so that way we can make the best decisions based on that data. So we're going to be able to see the reply rate, the conversation rate, the proposed rate, and the book rate based on whichever source that we select. So whether it's an inbound lead, outbound lead, or lead magnet received. So now that we've built all the flows inside ManyChat and AI is taking care of all of the conversations for us, the only thing that we're going to need to do is actually keep up with the conversations and see where they are in the sales process. So what you can actually do is go over to the leads tab, and you can actually see where every single lead is inside the sales process, and then also see, for example, which stage they're in and which source they're coming from. So for example, with Tate Brennan, we can see that they're in the call proposed stage. So for example, the calendar's already been sent to this lead, and we also know that they came from a lead magnet. And if for whatever reason I actually want to sort the leads based on where they are in the sales process, so sorting them by the stage, or actually want to sort them by which source they're coming from, whether it's a lead magnet or an inbound lead, I'm going to be able to do that in the software. So for example, if I want to sort this by all of the calls that have actually been booked on the calendar, I can actually go in here and see every call that's either already been taken on the calendar or the calls that are actually coming up as well. And while we're here, let's go ahead and check out a real conversation that AI had to actually get this lead booked in through a lead magnet upsell. And so for example, with this lead Piper, this is actually a trading offer, and it basically kept that into consideration and also knew that they opted in for a lead magnet. So it said, saw you grab the free trading breakdown. Did you get a chance to go through it yet? And then Piper said, yeah, I just finished it. Was actually really good. The part about risk per trade made a lot of sense. And then it basically started that conversation with this lead, even though they only opted in for that free resource. Because again, these leads are still pretty warm compared to, any sort of cold lead. And so again, it continued the conversation. It said, are you trading live right now or still on demo? They said trading live, but small, like 2K per account. Been at it for maybe 7 months. And then it asked, what's the main thing actually holding you back right now? So again, it's asking different qualifying questions to see if they're a good fit for the high ticket trading offer. And so they say, honestly, consistency, I'll have a good week, then give it all back the next. And so again, we continue that conversation with AI saying, what's the main goal, for the account over the next 6 to 12 months? And they tell us, ideally replace my 9 to 5. I'm making around 5K per month right now with my job. So with this AI conversation, we know that one, they're actually looking to, get educated or at least, advance their career with trading, and then also replace the 9 to 5 job. So we've gathered pain. And then we also know that they're decently qualified because they have a job and they're actually making money right now. And so I'm not going to read the entire conversation verbatim here, but you can probably get the gist of it. Basically, the AI is going to respond to every single lead from the time that lead magnet's been received. It'll ask different qualifying questions. It'll also acknowledge any sort of pain that they might have, and then have the entire conversation until the call booking. And so you can see right here, the call has actually been pitched. It said, perfect, here's this calendar, grab a time, that works best for you. We send the Calendly, and then they say just book for Thursday. And then we say, amazing, you're all set for Thursday. Do yourself one favor before then, jot down your last 5 trades. So again, it's just having, a very normal human conversation, even after the call's been booked, to make sure that they're showing up to the call and, are as excited as possible to actually show up and then invest in the program. And this is obviously a clear example of calls that have actually been booked in with the AI. But like I mentioned before, you can track any type of, stage that the lead might be in. So you can even track where calls have been proposed and then see where leads and conversations are actually dying. So in this case, you can see that Tate Brennan, the call has been proposed, and this would be a good time to actually send the follow-up. So you can actually send the follow-up inside the actual software to make sure that they actually book in that call. And real quick, not to mention, inside the software, you're going to have access to a CRM where you can, again, see every single lead based on where they are in the sales process, and an inbox as well, so that way you can see upcoming calls and any sort of recent conversations. And then finally as well, a queue where you can basically respond to leads manually if you ever want to actually take over the conversation and turn off the AI. And so guys, I hope this video actually helps you understand exactly how to set up AI to be able to handle every single conversation inside the DMs, follow up automatically, and book calls on autopilot. And if you're looking to actually get set up with this software so that way it sounds like you or any client that you're working with, and the entire ManyChat flow is completely built out, done for you, including all of the lead magnet flows and inbound flows, feel free to click the first link in the description. Other than that, I'm going to be posting videos just like this one going over different tactics to actually scale your high ticket offer. So if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.